For the rest of the hour, Bob Chapman normally joins us. Army intelligence, fought the communists, was the biggest private silver and gold broker ever, lived in South Africa, France, Germany, all over the world. Expert on the economy. I get him on about that, but he also is an expert on these people who've been fighting him for 45 years. Bob, I had read articles months ago about Sunstein in mainstream news saying, oh, he does want to restrict the Internet. Is that fair? Like it's mainstream and okay. I hadn't actually read or watched the videos of him, and watching it, and then when I put the name Czar in, I found a bunch of other clips. I'd put in Obama czar calls for banning guns, and I'd find 6, 7, 8 other czars saying it. I mean, this is worse than I thought, Bob Chapman. These people are arrogantly and openly out in the open saying, if you say anything we disagree with, we are going to arrest you, and we are going to take your guns. I mean, it's incredible, Bob.
You're right, and they finally have totally come into the open. And so evidently over the next year or so, or perhaps 2, they're going to attempt to get people's guns. And I think how they're going to do it is by joining in with the UN and using the UN excuse to go and collect everybody's guns.
The treaty, that's Associated Press. Obama says he's going to sign the treaty, and even if the Senate doesn't ratify it, the UN treaty says no private ownership of guns. I mean, it's really happening.
Well, this infiltration business, it's been going on for years. I ran into it starting in 1965, and I actually had a friend of mine who was working in a store, and he was also a person who was an expert in weapons, and he was a person who fixed them as well. And he got a visit one day from the FBI and the BATF, and they said that if he didn't cooperate with them, they were going to put him in jail, and trying to put me in jail, and because I was outspoken. And so they have been doing this sort of thing for years and years. They've been infiltrating groups for years. It's not only the federal government, but the federal government, like with the FBI, would go to local police departments and recruit them. Yeah,
mainly state police.
Well, yeah, it was state police, but they went into the local level. And I've discussed this I lived in Los Angeles for a long time, with the LAPD, because I used to shoot with a lot of those people. And also with someone who was second in command there who went to take over the Beverly Hills Police Department, who was a next-door neighbor of mine eventually. And so he told me exactly what they were doing. And so it's really nothing new. It's just that they've been doing it illegally for years, and now these people have come out and said the game's over for you. You can't speak about the government, against the government, or question the government anymore, and we're going to come and get your guns. And so I think people have got to decide and make plans for what they're going to do and these eventualities.
Well, that's the nail on the head, is that it came out in Congress, people went to jail, COINTELPRO is illegal, and then you have the White House head of Information and Regulatory Affairs who implements all this executive bureaucracy. He decides what they can do, and he's saying, we're doing this. He's openly calling for committing crimes. That's the difference. Why would they arrogantly come out in the open? Is this a public threat or a way to legitimize it with all their minions who go, is this really legal?
Well, I think it's a threat. And this is a threat, especially when you have that many people saying relatively the same thing. They're saying, we're going to come and get you. This is the Mayo mentality. And, what do you say to that? I mean, how many groups are there in the United States who get together and are militia or shoot or whatever? And, there's not that many people who do that. It could be a smokescreen as well to make the people who would vote for them to keep them in office, they're appealing to people who don't want people to have guns. You also have to consider, too, maybe the blatancy that you're seeing right now is a follow-up to the plunge in approval of the president, which is running somewhere between 35 and 40, depending upon which subject that you choose.
Well, what about how he goes on, Bob, to say, and I'm going to find the quote here in a moment, I read it several times yesterday, he says these people are very effective, they're taking over, they threaten us, and he doesn't just say gun owners. He says anyone criticizing government, including if you say sunlight is good for you, that will be illegal. I mean, that is cuckoo. I mean, he's saying, I am God, you cannot have any alternate opinion of what we say or you're arrested.
Well, he's talking about you and I and people like us. And quite frankly, Alex, we've talked about the success that we've had, and we've got the conspiracy running all over the place trying to find out what to do next because we've got them on the run. And that probably prompted some of these recent statements as well. We've been very, very effective. And what will they try to do? We don't know yet. But I don't know that the people are going to sit still for it.
Well, Bob, there's something psychological going on here because I see it over and over again. He says there's no such thing as a global government. If you say that, you'll be arrested. When it's all over the news, they're establishing world governments. So he knows it's all going on. He's pushing it. But he's just saying, look, you don't see anything like the mafia says, or you're going to sleep with the fishes. He's saying, you do what we say. And he picks something like the conspiracy theory that sunlight's good for you to just make it asininely broad.
That's right. So they can do anything they want.
But I think there is some megalomania and mental illness here, though. I mean, to have them openly praising Mao, openly praising arresting us. I mean, these guys really must think they're invincible. But then he goes on to admit they're in trouble. I guess it's like cockroaches when you poison your house, and before they die, they all start fornicating. We'll be right back with Bob Chapman. It's clear that the establishment wanted to use the backlash against Bush, who was only carrying out the globalist policy, to bring in their new puppet, to build him up as a messianic leader, Obama. He has now fallen faster than any president ever in the approval rating. Mainstream news says about 40. A lot of the other polls show 35, as Bob Chapman mentioned. So they really wanted to come in with a type of red terror with the banks using their communists, as they always do, to loot and rob everybody during the crisis they created. But now, clearly, they're freaked out. Clearly on every front. They may not even pass their health care now. That's in deep trouble. The Democrats are in a huge exodus. They know it's political suicide, but the banks are demanding this new tax. The liberals have found out it's all a robbery. We are routing them right now. So, yeah, they are blustering, saying, okay, we're going to take your guns, we're going to arrest you. But this is what he was saying in white papers for the White House. I don't even know if it was meant for public, but it's in mainstream news that they're all saying this. I see the biggest problem, Bob, is they brought in all these illegal aliens as their clients in Europe and the U.S. to pull the lever to vote for this. And so they think they're going to win still long term. What do we do? Educate the populations they brought in?
No, I don't think that's possible. Most of them are people who don't have beyond sixth grade educations. And I don't think that's easily doable. I think when they would get into a difficult economic situation, that you might be able to appeal to them just on a common sense basis. But that's a hard thing to do. We've got to keep on trying to get at the mainstream American who sees things going on and doesn't have an explanation, and we've got the explanation for him, which is reasonable and truthful. And, they're stalling for time. The longer they stall, the better it is for us, because it gives us the opportunity to try to accomplish what we've been accomplishing. I think, I hate to hear what he had to say, but I'm glad to hear we're pushing them right to the edge. They are running around in circles.
But again, they now admit, mainstream news, I printed several articles today, that he's the guy tapped. That's why they moved him into the White House to be the next Supreme Court justice when Ginsburg leaves. I mean, how could you have someone for Supreme Court who openly says ban free speech? He actually says, let me read quotes, government might ban conspiracy theories. That's a quote. Government might impose some kind of tax, financial or otherwise, on those who disseminate such theories. Then he lists them as global warming is a deliberate fraud, illegal, as saying there's a plan to get our guns, while he separately gives speeches saying they are going to ban them.
Desperate people do desperate things. It's a counterattack, and it's not going to work unless they try to implement them, and then they'll have to deal with the public. The longer it takes them to implement them, the better it is for us because we get more time to educate people.
Bob,
it has been an educational process.